Hello, everyone. My name is Wendy Myers of MyersDetox.com. Thank you so much for joining me today on our weekly Facebook Live. I'm so excited to have you guys here. And I do this every week. I do it every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So tune in next week when I'll be talking about barium toxicity and its effects on the body. Today, I'm going to be talking about cesium toxicity. This is a hot topic because of the Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan, which is still spewing just tons and tons of cesium into our environment. And it has been doing so for over 4 years. And unfortunately, the Japanese government has not been able to find a way to stop it. And sadly, it's releasing a ton of cesium into our environment in the same way that in Europe, Chernobyl released, that nuclear disaster released a ton of cesium into that environment in Europe. And as a result, people that were doing hair mineral analyses and other types of tests, the labs were seeing high levels of cesium for at least a decade or so following that accident. And I've had a few clients that were in that region or grew up when Chernobyl happened and near that area and have a lot of cesium and have in their body and have cesium toxicity as a result of that. And so cesium is a big problem. It's going to be becoming more and more of a problem as people are eating more fish out of the Pacific Ocean and are just exposed in that part of the world in Japan to cesium toxicity. And cesium is also reaching the west coast of California and Oregon and Washington. It's being found in fish in those areas, unfortunately, and we are unfortunately being exposed to cesium. I have cesium myself. I found when I did a urine metals test and was surprised by that. But I'm taking my activated silica product, which helps to detox cesium. But we'll get into more into that as we talk about what substances will detox cesium. But today we're going to be talking, like I said, about cesium toxicity, how you're exposed to cesium, nuclear energy and radioactive cesium, symptoms of cesium toxicity, how to identify cesium and how to protect yourself from cesium, and learn about the supplements that will detox cesium. So if you're just tuning in now, thank you so much for joining me. Pam, thank you. Hello. Thank you for joining. Blaze, thanks for joining as always. Lisa and Blaze, hi, how are you doing? It's great to have you here every week. And so let's get into it. Let's get into our little chat about cesium toxicity. So you're exposed to cesium by eating, drinking, breathing, or making skin contact with cesium. And one of the waste products of nuclear power is radioactive cesium. And so radioactive cesium is created by the fission of uranium and fuel rods in nuclear power plants. That's why Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan is releasing tons of cesium into our environment. It was a product of the fission of uranium fuel rods. And let's see. So radioactive cesium is also produced by detonating nuclear weapons. That's what happened in Chernobyl. That's why cesium was released into the environment there. And in March 2011, Fukushima nuclear power plant suffered an accident from the tsunami that happened. And today, 300 tons of radioactive water containing cesium is going into the Pacific Ocean every single day. And radioactive cesium at cesium-137 dissolves into water, meaning it can spread rapidly through the environment. And this includes the migratory fish near Fukushima. And unfortunately, cesium-137 has a particularly long half-life of 30 years. So that cesium is here to stay. It's not going to be breaking down anytime soon over the next 30 years. And so because of this, due to cesium pollution, tuna and other migratory fish are now contaminated with cesium. And so I recommend avoiding large fish from the Pacific due to cesium, mercury, and cadmium contamination. So you want to avoid ahi tuna, you want to avoid hamachi. These are common fish that people eat when they go to sushi. But the tuna that is used, like in canned tuna, those fish aren't as affected. My friend Randall Hartnell, he's the owner of Vital Choice Seafood. He's done lots of testing on fish, like the salmon that are in the Pacific and the smaller fish used for canned tuna, albacore tuna, and he hasn't found any measurable levels of cesium in them. So I love Vital Choice Seafood. They are, they do a lot of testing on their fish for metals, including mercury and other metals, to make sure that their customers are not eating, metal contaminated fish. So he sources his fish from sources that are not contaminated from metals. So highly recommend them. Those fish are okay, but there's a lot of fish in the ocean, like I said, the large migratory fish like the ahi tuna that you want to avoid. And additionally, Turkish tea crops were contaminated by radioactive cesium following the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster. So all the radioactive cesium can contaminate plants by falling onto leaves and coming to rest on their surface. So a lot of, unfortunately, I think Japan and foods coming from Japan can be very contaminated with cesium because of the amount that's being unleashed into the environment there. And additionally, there's more sources of cesium, including occupational exposure, working in the nuclear power industry, explosion of nuclear weapons, radiation therapy for certain cancers will use cesium. Mining and milling of certain ores, certain metals, and breast milk can contain cesium, unfortunately. Pasteurized milk, rice and sake made from contaminated rice, certain fungi and mushrooms, teas potentially from Japan that are grown in Japan, and soils near the Fukushima nuclear site. And some of the symptoms of cesium toxicity are chronic fatigue. Cesium is one of the metals that's detoxed with my Mitochondria Detox supplement kit. And right now we're having a special on it. It's $50 off. We only have 2 more days left. You'll get the Mitochondria Detox $50 off. You go to mitochondriadetox.com. You can get it for $99 right now. It's a really simple 3-step system that helps to detox metals that cause fatigue, including cesium. My activated silica is a specially formulated silica that binds onto cesium and removes it from storage sites. And then my CitraCleanse, modified citrus pectin, binds to it and removes it from the body. So just go to mitochondriadetox.com to learn more. It's one of the most effective products you can use to detox cesium. And then cesium will also cause decreased appetite. It will cause nausea. It can cause diarrhea, vomiting, headaches, seizures, and cardiac arrhythmias. And it's interesting, after the Chernobyl disaster happened, it released a lot of cesium into the environment, and the contaminated lands in Belarus and people living in Belarus were diagnosed with very severe health issues, including weakened hearts, gastrointestinal anomalies, chronic blood disorders, and malfunctioning thyroid. So these are other effects of cesium. And the target organs of cesium are the liver, intestines, heart, and kidneys. Cesium can also be found in the blood. It can deposit in the bones. It can deposit in the gonads, so in the male genitalia. It can deposit in the heart. It can deposit in the liver, like I just mentioned. It can deposit in your muscles, in your spleen, and in your thyroid. And so that's another reason why a lot of people's thyroids are negatively impacted is from cesium, mercury, and other metals dramatically impact thyroid function. It's why thyroid medication is one of the #1 prescribed medications in the United States, if not around the world. And so let's talk a little bit about cesium and fatigue. Cesium can be a big causative factor in fatigue because it displaces potassium in the body. So it interferes in potassium channels in the body. And cesium toxicity can be one of the reasons that potassium is really, really low on a hair mineral analysis. So the K, or potassium, on the hair mineral analysis frequently is low on many people's tests when they finally get around to doing a hair mineral analysis. And cesium can be one factor, but other metals can be factors as well. And, Cesium interferes in numerous processes that affect energy production, namely suppression of enzymes involved in the energy exchange of cells. And there's Dr. Bandavetsky. He's from the Belgrade Institute. He explains the exact process by which cesium affects heart and energy production the best. The direct influence of cesium-137 on the heart is due to its selective accumulation within the myocardial cells. And this is due perhaps to the intense operation of the sodium-potassium pump. And since 137C is in the same atomic group as potassium, it can easily enter into cardiac cells. And this is accompanied by the suppression of the activity of an important enzyme, creatine phosphokinase, or CPK, which is involved in the energy exchange of cells. So the accumulation, the transport, and utilization of high energy phosphates. So CPK catalyzes the reversible phosphorylation reaction, which involves the transfer of a phosphate group of ATP, which is our energy currency of our cells, to creatine, and from phosphocreatine to ADP. So cesium interferes in a number of different factors involved in energy production. And Dr. Bandavetsky observed that the decrease in activity of creatine phosphokinase indicated serious metabolic defects in energy metabolism of the heart cells. And this is observed in changes of the mitochondrial system in the form of an increased number in size of mitochondria because they are not working well. So they have reduced ability to produce energy. And so that's why it's really important if you have chronic fatigue syndrome, or you're suffering from fatigue, or you have low potassium on your hair mineral analyses, cesium can be a culprit in that. And you don't necessarily have to test for cesium. You can just do my Mitochondria Detox, which you can learn more about, mitochondriadetox.com. Very, very effective at removing cesium. The activated silica, it's a choline stabilized silica that binds onto cesium and removes it from the body, and then will restore normal mitochondrial activity, normal energy production, and people will find their potassium will raise on their hair mineral analysis if they're monitoring their metals and minerals with a hair mineral analysis. And so, so this is just, like I said, another reason why people have chronic fatigue is due to cesium. And so let's talk about some other ways to detox cesium. Like I said, my CitraCleanse and activated silica work very, very well. You can also use zeolites. Zeolites help to detox cesium. Diatomaceous earth, Prussian blue will also detox cesium as well. And let's see if we have any other things here that detox cesium. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So not that many substances detox cesium. There's not a ton of research in this area. There's certainly other products that can detox it, but these are where there's known research that I've been able to find and read. These products detox cesium excellently. You don't really need anything else. And yeah, so why don't I take some of you guys' questions. First, I'll talk about how to detect cesium. So we don't see cesium on a hair mineral analysis. We can indirectly, assume people may have cesium if they have really low potassium levels, but it's just a potential indirect indicator. To confirm cesium toxicity, you have to do a urine analysis, a urine metals test using a DMSA challenge. And when I do that, I also give people a round of BioSil, so an intense dose of BioSil or my activated silica. And that is really, really helpful to push cesium out of the body so we can see it represented on a urine metals analysis. And so that's how you detect cesium. So let's take some of your questions. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining me. Grace, thanks much for joining us. Melvin, thanks for joining us. Melvin, I've known him a while on Facebook. Dan, thanks for joining us. Lisa, Zora. So Pam, so I used to work in a nuclear industry. What is the best place to get tested? I grew up by TMI and worked in nuke weapons as well. So I have had a number of clients that worked in or lived near nuclear facilities, and I did find they had really high strontium levels. Strontium is a radioactive, potentially there's a radioactive forms of strontium that people can be exposed to that we can see in the hair. But it's possible you were exposed to cesium. The best test to do is a urine metals analysis using a high dose of BioCell. So BioCell is what will push cesium out of the body, so you can see it represented on a urine test. And so Neva, thanks for joining me. She's my friend for a very, very long time. Sarah, hi, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Marlene, thanks for joining us, and Micheline. So Raymond, so hi Wendy, before I found you to be my virtual detox guide, I was led by someone to buy 2 powders for detox. So bulk supplements, disodium EDTA, and ALA powder, or alpha lipoic acid powder. Since I purchased your Myers Detox Cocktail and CitraCleanse, and should I keep those powders or throw them out? Many thanks. So with the EDTA, you potentially could keep taking that, but the problem with EDTA is it doesn't absorb orally very well. So oral EDTA only has about a 4% absorption rate. So oral EDTA really is virtually useless to take. I give people EDTA suppositories, a product called Kelatox that you can find at store.myersdetox.com. That's a great way to administer EDTA, or it needs to be done IV. I haven't really found, liposomal EDTA can be really effective as well, but I haven't seen any studies that show its absorption rate, that it absorbs really well. But overall, I avoid oral ingestion of EDTA because of its poor absorption and therefore poor ability to detox your body. As far as ALA powder or alpha lipoic acid powder, that is probably fine to take. I wouldn't throw it out. I would go ahead and take it. It's going to be a water-soluble alpha lipoic acid, which is not as effective, but still is effective, but just not as effective as fat-soluble lipoic acid. So I typically recommend people take Life Extension. It's called Life Extension Super Lipoic Acid, and that's a fat-soluble sodium R-lipoic acid. So different forms, all these products that we're talking about, they come in different forms, and different forms have various levels of effectiveness. And so based on my research, I use a fat-soluble, much more effective at detoxing your brain and getting into fat cells and nervous tissue in your brain and pulling metals out of your central nervous system and fat tissues. So, and let's see. So Elda, thanks for joining us, and Lena, hello from Seoul. Thanks for stopping by. So Zora, so how much BioCell should you take? So I'm no longer recommending BioCell. I'm recommending my activated silica. It's a very similar formulation to BioCell. And you want to take about 10 drops per day in a little bit of citrus juice, like lemon, lime, orange juice, or grapefruit juice. Even pineapple juice is fine. You just need some citric acid to maximize absorption of the activated silica. And if that makes you tired, which it will for some people, you want to reduce the dose. You can, you can start with just 1 or 2 drops and titrate up. If you do find it 1 to 2 drops a day, you can titrate up to 10 drops a day. I take 15 drops a day. That doesn't bother me. I've been doing it for a while, but everyone's a little bit different. Someone with chronic fatigue syndrome may be very, very sensitive and can't tolerate it, if at all. And if someone can't tolerate BioCell or my activated silica, then they want to just start with my CitraCleanse, modified citrus pectin, taking that, absorbing lots of toxins, absorbing as much as you can. And then once you're ready, maybe detox for a little while, then you may be ready for the activated silica. But some people are really sensitive and they can't tolerate it just yet. But majority of people do just fine on it. So Jennifer, so hi, I have some BioCell capsules. How many of them do I need to take to detox cesium and thallium? So for the capsules, those are 5 milligrams each. They have about 5 drops each. So you want to take about 2 per day. And I usually recommend the drops so that you can control the dose a little bit better. With the capsules, you can't control the dose, but each capsule is equivalent to 5 drops per day, so just take 2 per day if that works for you. If it's a little bit too much for you, you're feeling a little bit tired, or headachy or achy. Sometimes you can get achy bones when thallium or aluminum or cesium are coming out of your bones. Then the BioCell, you can just take 1 capsule per day. So Zora, so what is the dosage of DMSA and where can we get that? So for DMSA, that does not detox cesium, just to be clear. So I don't recommend taking DMSA just on your own if you haven't done any testing or you haven't really tried other detox methods. Usually I recommend DMSA as last resort when other things aren't working or if someone is very, very ill and it's kind of an emergency situation. So for the dose of DMSA, I mean, I really can't go into that over Facebook because that is a prescription medication. It has to be prescribed by a medical doctor, and different people will have different doses. So we won't get into that here. So Blaze, so how long can you stay on your Myers mitochondria detox, and how often should you redo the hair mineral test or the hair mineral analysis? So you can stay on the mitochondria detox indefinitely. I would just take breaks periodically. I'd probably maybe every 6 months. You can take a few weeks off or a month off. People tend to take breaks naturally where they miss a day or they're sick and they don't take it, or they go travel and they don't take it. So, but typically, you know, you want to do it for at least 6 months, but to remove the majority of metals that people have, the metals that the mitochondria detox specifically removes, which is arsenic, aluminum, tin, thallium, and cesium. Most people need to be on it for a couple of years. And if someone's very, very, very toxic and has severe chronic fatigue syndrome, they might need to be on it a little bit longer. And so, you know, the name of the game in detox is you want it to be slow and safe. And so that's exactly what you get with the mitochondria detox, but it's one of those things where it takes a long time if it's slow and safe. But it's very, very effective. I mean, that doesn't mean you're not going to have improvement during that time. Over that 2-year period, you will definitely see slow but sure improvement in your symptoms, improvement in your energy levels, your brain functioning, your mood, your ability to sleep. And so it's very effective in that respect. And so right now we're offering a special on the mitochondria detox. I'm just going to type in the URL to visit to take advantage of. You get $50 off the Mito Detox supplement kit. And so just go to this website, mitochondriadetox.com, to get it for $99. Normally it's $150. So we're offering a special right now because we just launched it. I'm super, super excited to finally be offering this to you guys. And, you know, it's been a long time coming to have my own supplement line. So very, very proud of it. So Zora, so can activated charcoal work? So I haven't seen any research that activated charcoal detoxes cesium. It very likely does, but I just don't have any data on that. So the activated charcoal is indiscriminate. It does absorb all different kinds of toxins, but I'm not a huge fan of it because it's indiscriminate. It absorbs lots of minerals. It absorbs you know, nutrients and things that you need. So it's something you can definitely take on an occasional basis, or like once a week, something like that, but it's not something I'd stay on long term. So Jana, so I had the urinalysis with DMSA and it did show high cesium, high barium, nickel, thallium, rubidium, which is non-toxic, and platinum. And I was in Colorado at the time. Lots of chemtrails overhead. Also was taking a liquid vitamin mineral supplement that had broad spectrum minerals, including some of these. The company said it wasn't due to their product, have been doing various detoxes. What are your thoughts? So, you know, there are a lot of vitamin mineral supplements that do contain certain metals. They will contain nickel and barium and other metals, because where you find minerals, you also find metals. So many times in supplements, they're in such low levels, we don't really worry too much about that. I mean, you do get some metals in sea salts and things like that. But, you know, unfortunately, you know, metals, there's contamination in our air, food, and water. So they're going to be in some of our supplements as well. So I don't worry too much about a lot of different mineral supplements that may have metals in them, because we have so many other exposures as well. You just want to be on a sensible detox program when you're taking any supplements, but you're typically not going to get toxic, so to speak, from mineral supplements unless they contain absorbently high levels. But most of the mineral supplements that contain they contain very, very trace amount of metals, but that just is sometimes par for the course where we find minerals as well. But typically, there's so many different sources of barium, nickel, thallium, and cesium, not likely from the supplement, the toxic levels of that. So Jennifer, hi Wendy, I scored very high in lead and a bit less high, but outside the reference range in barium on a toxic metals test. What do you suggest? So for lead, I usually recommend EDTA suppositories. This is one of the most effective ways to remove lead, especially at very high levels. It'll bring them down very, very quickly. Lead can make you very, very tired and brain fog and sleep a lot, and that obviously interferes in your quality of life. So the most effective supplement is EDTA suppositories. Lead's very difficult to remove. We have a lot of lead in our bones and our bodies because of exposures and our mother passing it to us in utero. So I typically will recommend the EDTA suppositories by Helitox. Those you take every other day. You want to take them for about 4 to 6 months and then retest your urine test, see where you're at, and see if you need to continue taking them. For barium, barium was outside the reference range. So for barium, there's a lot of different substances that you can take. We're going to be talking in depth about barium next week, but for a little sneak peek, some of the substances that remove barium are cilantro. I really like coriander seed oil. Perfect pressed coriander seed oil is amazing. I love it. I take it every single day. Very effective detox agent. My CitraCleanse modified citrus pectin will also detox barium. Zeolites get barium as well, and then diatomaceous earth, but I don't normally recommend that because it can, if you have leaky gut, it can get into your bloodstream and cause a lot of damage because the diatomaceous earth has these really sharp barbs, so you don't want that damaging the inside of your body. So I don't typically recommend DE or diatomaceous earth for that reason. But for barium, those are the only a handful of substances remove barium, but I typically recommend Zeobind by BioPure, which we have in the Myers Detox store, store.myersdetox.com. And we also have the CitraCleanse, which will detox barium as well. So that's what I recommend. So Bill McCullough, so does the CitraCleanse go into the brain to detox? No, it does not. So it goes into the bloodstream and it goes into the gut. And so in the bloodstream, it will absorb all kinds of metals and chemicals. But you typically need to take substances that get into the tissues and pull the metals out, and then the binder will bind onto it in the blood when it gets into the bloodstream. And so that's typically how it works. So you'll take something like my activated silica, it'll get into cells, into the brain tissues, and also things like the coriander seed oil will get into your brain tissue and pull metals out, and then the CitraCleanse binder will bind onto it in the blood, and then the metals will be excreted via the kidneys. So Mario, please explain how we get intoxicated from cesium. So I went over that earlier in the Facebook Live, and so you can replay this as soon as we're done. The video is done, and it'll take a couple minutes to load, and then you can come back on the Myers Detox Facebook page and watch it over. But most typically we get it from nuclear disasters like the Fukushima nuclear disaster, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, and people can get occupational exposure working in nuclear sites, but that's pretty much it. We get it in some food like contaminated milk, rice, and sake, and mushrooms, and some teas, but that's pretty much it. It comes from nuclear disasters. Let's see. So Raymond, so I often hear you mention tin as a heavy metal that can be detoxed. Is tin foil then to be avoided? So yes, so aluminum foil, it's called tin foil, but it's actually aluminum foils. But aluminum foil, it's very, very soft, so it can very easily get into your food, especially if your food is acidic. So it'll etch off the aluminum from the foil. So I typically don't recommend that to be cooking with that. You said you've been using parchment paper instead. Yes, that's very good. I use parchment paper. It works great. You can also use like coconut oil spray, but I do not use any aluminum foil anymore. But tin is a toxic metal that causes fatigue, but it's not actually in tin foil. It's actually aluminum. So Jana, is your silica from the horsetail herb? No, it is not. So horsetail, there is silica found in horsetail, but there's different types of silica. So the silica in my activated silica is a choline stabilized silica. So it has very different chemical properties and binding capacity of other types of silica, including horsetail. I think the silica from horsetail, it will detox you, but it can be very, very weak. So it's not something I typically recommend for detoxification purposes. There's lots of research behind choline stabilized silica and its ability to detox metals that cause fatigue. So that's why I recommend it. Quicksilver Scientific has a product called Intestinal Metal Detox. Another product called Metal Sweep. It's the same product, and it's a silica. It's a specific formula of silica. And that silica gets rid of mercury, lead, cadmium, and copper. So different formulations have a different binding capacity for different metals. So very, very different substances. So you can't just take any kind of silica and get the same results. If you're specifically looking to detox cesium, arsenic, aluminum, tin, and thallium, you need to use my activated silica or a biocell. So Pam, so can chlorella, spirulina, and similar seaweed veggies help to detox cesium and strontium? So no, I wouldn't be using those products for detoxification of cesium. I haven't done a ton of research on chlorella because I don't think it's a very, very effective detox agent. Part of the, I've had talked to a number of people, and we found that, when you take chlorella, we just don't see a lot of metals coming out on metals tests. And so there's different types of chlorella. I mentioned this before. BioPure has 2 different types of chlorella. They're very effective. It depends on the size of the chlorella. It depends on how it's processed. It depends on the strain. There's a lot of different variants in quality of chlorella, quality of spirulina, but I would not be taking these products to detox cesium or strontium. You want to be taking my activated silica. You want to be for cesium, like I mentioned. The most effective products that are shown in research are the modified citrus pectin, my CitraCleanse, Prussian Blue, and zeolites, and that's about it. So those are the most effective things. So Raymond, so referencing coffee enemas, I'm sorry to ask a question on your video that's from 2 weeks ago, but how bad is it if there's a few coffee grounds in the bucket? I seem not to be able to get every grain out. I don't really worry about that. There's grains in my coffee enema bucket also. I did one this morning first thing when I woke up, but there's some stuff in there, but it tends to settle on the bottom of the bucket and doesn't always really get into the tube that's going inside you. But if a few granules get in you, probably not a big deal. They will come out. And so Zora, so I would like to recommend your detox products to my patients. Also would like to get some information about protocols and research for detox when recommending supplements. So what's the best way to do this? I'm in Texas. And so, I'm going to be opening finally our Detox Institute in 2019. I've been working on that with Dr. Bruce Jones for over 3 years, and good things come to those who wait. It's taken time to create the course that I've always envisioned, and that's very thorough and completely research-based. And we're going to teach you how to read hair mineral analysis with everything in the program completely based on scientific research that will be in the course. And I don't think there's really anything out there that is as thorough or well-researched as the courses we're going to be publishing in the Detox Institute when we're finally opening it next year. So unfortunately, I don't really have a lot of information other than what's on myersdetox.com. Every article I write, there's lots of research behind that in the references section that you can read. And, as far as the supplements, there's for every, like the Cesium Toxicity article, for all the supplements that I recommend to detox it, there's, references to research that show those supplements detox each metal. And so that's where I would go as the reference section. So Jill, so when metals show up on the Nest Energy Scan, do you recommend further testing? So a Nest Health Bioenergetic Scan is a program that we offer at Myers Detox for a number of reasons. And it helps to facilitate detoxification of metals because it just improves your body's overall health and functioning. And I like to use it also when clients come in when they're too sick to detox, or they're too sick to take supplements, or they have tons of food sensitivities, or they just have all kinds of issues going on, and they're really not stable enough to detox. We have to get them to a point where their body is functioning a lot better and they're feeling a lot better before we start flooding their system with metals that are currently stuck in their tissues. So on a Nest Health Energy Scan, it shows a number of metals, but the Nest Health Scan typically shows that your body isn't handling or detoxing that metal very well. It doesn't show the levels of the metals. So I don't really care what it says on a Nest Health Scan. I would always recommend testing because everyone has metals and you want to see what metals that you have. But the Nest Health Scan typically shows that your body's just not dealing with that metal very well, or handling or metabolizing that metal very well. It has nothing to do with the levels of metal that you have in your body. So Jana, so what about the ionic foot bath with cilantro for detoxing? So I love ionic foot baths. They're great. I recommend the AMD, the Ionic Cleanse by AMD, and that's a medical grade ionic foot bath. We have it in the store at store.myersdetox.com. And they have amazing research that shows dramatic improvement in autistic children and other populations following use of that. And so you don't need to put cilantro in the water, or you can take cilantro certainly when doing the ionic foot baths, but the metals don't come out into the water, so that's kind of a misconception. What happens is 2 or 3 days after doing the foot baths, the secretion of metals in the urine increase. There's increased output of toxic metals in the urine, and so that's how it works. It's not like you're getting the metals into the water, so just FYI. So Bill, so I'm on your Myers Detox protocol. I have the usual suspects of metals according to my hormonal analysis, but my main problem is gadolinium from MRIs. And my protocol includes tequila tox for this, but I was wondering if I should wait to use the tequila tox until I've detoxed the others first. So no, you don't really need to wait until you detox other metals. It's kind of a simultaneous process. Like for you, gadolinium can be very, very toxic. You know, it can be very problematic and make some people very, very, very ill. So it's one of those things where, many times I won't recommend the tequila tox right away for people. Have, kind of see how they do on some of the other detox supplements first, and then do the tequila tox with them. But for you, I recommend the tequila tox for the gadolinium. But you can start taking that, right away. You don't really need to wait for anything. So that's all the questions that we have for today. And I thank you guys so much for joining me. If anyone has any other questions, I recommend that you ask them now before I go away. And we do this every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I love doing these Facebook Lives. Next week we're talking about barium toxicity, which is fairly common. I see it in a lot of clients. And we'll talk about the nature of barium, where you get it, how you identify it, what supplements detox barium. And that's going to be really interesting because I like talking about little known metals that a lot of other detox experts may not be talking about, because it's important to bring awareness about these different metals, how they affect your body, and how you can detox them on your own. So I'm giving you tons and tons of information on these Facebook Lives. I also have tons of free information on myersdetox.com. There's hundreds of articles. There's hundreds of podcasts for you to dig into to learn how to detox your body on your own. So Marlene has a question. So I've been using ionizing foot baths daily for 3 months. There is debris floating and particles suspended in the water. What are these? So you do have some things that come out in the water. There's different chemicals that can come out in the water, but some people say that the salts that you're putting in the water interact with the components in the water itself that you're using, and there's it looks different in different parts of the country because there are different toxins in the water. So many times it can be the salts interacting with the toxins in the water and the electricity component with that, causing, different things debris to be created in the water. So that's really more what it is. It's not necessarily coming out of your body. It's the stuff that's already in the water. And so, Jennifer, I eat a lot of nuts and Brazil nuts, which are a source of barium. So Brazil nuts can be a source of barium. I don't really worry too much about that because Brazil nuts have so much cesium in them. I mean, we do have, get metals in our food and sea salt and water and other places. So I think that the pros of eating Brazil nuts outweigh the cons. So it's just one of those things where my clients that eat 2 Brazil nuts a day have perfect selenium levels. So that's a great way to get selenium levels. But I just recommend, no matter what, taking modified citrus pectin so that you can detox barium that you may be getting in your food. So Marlene, I'm getting less particles now. So, it's hard to speculate what the particles in the ionic footbaths may be, but my best speculation, it's probably just the contents in the water where you're getting the particles. So everyone, thanks so much for joining me. It's a pleasure coming here every week and interacting with you guys and talking with you guys. And I will see you guys next week talking about barium toxicity. If you miss any part of this broadcast, just tune in. Facebook Live will be loading it. Take a few minutes to load this 40-minute video, and then you can watch it again. You can watch it from the beginning. You can also go on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Wendy Myers, and watch the whole video as well. So again, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll talk to you guys next Tuesday.